We're talking now about Montrealers who have the right to vote in the U.S. election. And you can imagine how no matter what their political stripe might be, they have probably perked up and taken an interest over the last few weeks, what with the development both on the Republican and on the Democrat side. There are organizers here in the city trying to encourage Americans, people who have the right to vote in the American election, to do so. Across Canada, we're talking about 500,000 people. Here to help us understand the Montreal situation, we'll speak first with Erin Kotecki Vest of Democrats Abroad Canada. Erin, thanks for joining us on Montreal Now.
Thank you so much for having me.
What sense do you have of the U.S. eligible voter population in Montreal? Are we talking about tens of thousands of people, do you think?
Absolutely, tens of thousands of people, especially if we're going out of Montreal and into the Metro Montreal area and all the way up to Quebec City and into the eastern townships. And we're very excited to reach those tens of thousands of people and make sure they get their ballot for this very important election. And whether they're a Democrat or they're a Republican, they can do that by going to votefromabroad.org. And they need to make sure to do that by September 1st so they get their ballot in time to return it in time.
So votefromabroad.org, is that a nonpartisan website?
It is a nonpartisan site. Yes, that is correct.
Do you feel in the air this time around that there's a little bit more urgency maybe? Are people feeling, this time I really have to make sure I get signed up?
Without a doubt. Before President Biden stepped aside just a week and a day ago, things were pretty quiet at Democrats Abroad. We were going about our work, but we were doing what we could to get the president reelected. And as of right now, my phone, my email, everything has blown up, and it has not stopped. We have added hundreds of more volunteers. We have had thousands more people head to the site to make sure they get their ballots, and we've got people donating like crazy. They're very excited. And, I have to tell you, I think it helps that the vice president has Montreal connections.
Well, yeah, you never know. It is in your opinion, the Kamala effect that you're seeing there?
Without a doubt, it is the Kamala effect, without a doubt. But we do want to make clear, it's also not a coronation. 14 million Democrat primary voters cast their ballots for the Biden-Harris ticket, which obviously included Vice President Harris. So yes, it's an unusual situation given the timing, but until a couple decades ago, candidates were always chosen at the convention.
What kind of sign-up numbers are you hoping to generate where you can sit back and say, you know what, we did an adequate job mobilizing?
Well, last time around, 8% of voters from abroad voted in the presidential election. We want to break that 8% mark. That's our goal.
That's 8% of all eligible voters, no matter what their political stripe.
Correct.
It seems that's a really low figure. Do Americans who live abroad feel that they don't have to concern themselves with politics anymore? Maybe they don't have a right to concern themselves because they're not living in the U.S.? What's the mindset there?
Well, I can't speak for all Americans, but I can speak for my own family. And we feel it's not only our right, but our responsibility because, we are immigrants here in Canada, and thank you very much for having us. But that is still our home, and things are happening there that do still tend to seep up and affect us from south of the border. As they say, when the U.S. catches a cold, Canada might get a cough. That's sort of what happens when it comes to politics. And that's something that I want to make sure stays south of the border so that Canada can stay Canada and we can take care of business as our own family, so to speak, in the U.S.
Erin Kotecki Vest with Democrats Abroad Canada, thank you for your time. Right now, we welcome Georganne Burke with Republicans Overseas Canada. Hello, Georganne.
Hi, how are you?
Very well. What have you been seeing in the days since that assassination attempt on Donald Trump? Has this been a mobilizing event?
I would say it had a huge effect on supporters of President Trump and Republicans in general, not to mention many independent voters. And even my closest friend that I grew up with, literally, we went to nursery school together from the age of 3 on. She and her husband, who are Democrats, even they were appalled and horrified at that. And I think that it's been something that for Republicans, for sure, has motivated them to work harder to have President Trump reelected. That is what I'm seeing. I actually have heard it even here in Canada. Democrats abroad are a bigger group in Canada than Republicans overseas. There's no question about it. It is, I think, a function of Americans perceiving and, in fact, understanding that the ethos in Canada is a bit more liberal than it is conservative. Even our conservatives are different from conservatives in the U.S. So they feel that, you'll see more of them talking at least about their viewpoints publicly. However, what I have discovered now is since the assassination, since the convention, Canadian American expats living in Canada are speaking out more about their views on President Trump in a positive way. They're actually saying that they support him. They have been supporting him, but they've been afraid to say it. They're less afraid to say it now than they were a year ago, even a week ago or 2 weeks ago. So I think it's had a net positive effect, as positive as something that awful can be, on getting people to understand that, that he is important to them, that they would like to see him reelected, and they see that someone tried to stop that from happening. We don't know exactly why or what motivated him to do that, but if the bullet would have hit its mark, he would have been gone. And it was just a stroke of luck or the hand of God or however you want to see it, that is not what happened to him.
Do you think most Republicans living, and again, voter-eligible Americans living in Canada who identify as Republican, are they MAGA Republicans? Like you're talking about how a lot of them up until now haven't been very willing to speak publicly about their support for Trump, but they are more open about it now. What percentage would you say are actually MAGA Republicans? I'm
not sure what a MAGA Republican is, frankly.
Well, that's a diehard Donald Trump supporter, someone who votes for Trump and not necessarily just for the Republicans.
Okay, well, I guess you could probably count me like that. I'm very discerning about who I vote for. I would tend to vote for the Republican in general, I would say, but there might be Republicans I couldn't vote for. Okay, I could say that. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head, but there could be. I was a Democrat, and I stopped being a Democrat voter, even though I was still a member of the Democratic Party until 2012, but I couldn't vote for the people that were running with the Democratic Party at that time. I just felt that they were not, like something had happened and we had misaligned somehow. So I'm not sure what it means. A MAGA Republican doesn't mean anything to me. A Republican is a person who supports Republican values. And I think that when you see that 90+% of Republicans support Donald Trump, that means that's what the Republican Party is. That's where they've headed. Maybe they're somewhat different from the traditional Republican Party. I'll grant you that, but I don't understand why it's used as a pejorative term, and I think unfairly so. It's just that the attitude of Republicans has changed. It's much more a party that's focused on the working man and woman, on ordinary people. It is not as much affected by the rich and the wealthy and the well-heeled. I see that actually on the Democrat side more these days.
Tell us about...
I do want to say one thing that your previous caller said. She indicated that the website that she mentioned was a nonpartisan website. That website is run by Democrats abroad. If people want the actual government-run website to get their ballot, they go to svap.gov, which is the Federal Voter Assistance Program. They will provide you with your ballot. That is a nonpartisan site. They will not be collecting data on you so they can harass you every day. It's not a Republican site. That's where I send all of the people that ask me about where to get a ballot.
All right. Georganne Burke with Republicans Overseas Canada. Thank you for the interview.
My pleasure.